Welcome, everybody. I'm Dustin Kircher, and I got my partners here, Christian and Ben. We are part of MHP Nation. Appreciate you guys coming out to watch us live. For those that are live, we are taking questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We created this group so we can all learn together about the mobile home park and RV park space. We're coming from the single family side and now jumping into this aspect of real estate. So we're bringing in special guests that are leaders in this market. And we have a special guest today who is crushing it. Ryan Hill is our special guest for today. And he has over 1,100 pads in the mobile home park space, 2 RV parks, and a commercial deal. And a pretty short period of time. So without further ado, I want to invite Ryan Hill and let's welcome him to the show. What's going on, Ryan?
I'm happy to be here.
Oh,
yeah. Can you hear me okay?
So I'm super excited to have you in here. Yeah. We just froze for a second, but we're good now. So yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, we were talking a little bit backstage and just already getting to know you a little bit better and what you're into. This is going to be a great show with all the questions I know that are going to come about. So, let's just jump right into it. And, how long have you been in the mobile home park space?
Yeah. So my wife and I purchased our first little mobile home park in Racine, Kansas. It's about 40 minutes south of Kansas City. It's a 19 space. So 15 mobile home, 4 RV spaces. Back in 2019. I've been educating myself for a couple of years on mobile home parks. Before that, just connecting with other owners, listening to the podcasts that were out there, finding the books that were out there, and then just doing a lot of sweat equity work and trying to get that first deal. So that first one was actually an owner finance deal. It had been on LoopNet forever. Like I was trying to find stuff closer to where we lived in Washington State and not getting a lot of traction there. So just went out just nationwide, started looking. And that one was kind of an accident park because I flew into St. Louis looking at a different one that was just a total disaster of a community, just doing my first due diligence, really not knowing what I was doing, but knew enough to just run away from that one.
Oh, man.
And then I still had like 4 days left in St. Louis, and I had connected with this broker out in Kansas, 4.5 hour drive in February, trying to beat a storm. Met the owner on site and just kind of did a handshake of, all right, let's try to make this work. So it was nice. An interesting ride to that first deal for sure.
And did that deal?
So you said you were sorry, go ahead, Ryan. So you said you were kind of self-taught. You were learning from podcasts and reading books.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And then I had a mentor early on, Ryan Naris. He does the Mobile Home Parks in Real Life podcast now. So he helped, super generous with his time when I was first getting started, and he'd jump on phone calls and help me evaluate deals and things like that, even before he started his mentorship program. So I think like finding those mentors early on is really helpful. And that's something that Brett, my business partner, we started Suncrest in 2021, that we both still believe in quite a bit, is just scheduling time with anyone that wants to learn more about the industry, partner on a deal, sweat equity kind of partnership, do cold calling, whatever it might be. We're happy to connect with folks.
That's awesome. I learned about you through that Ryan Naris episode, and that's where I'm like, oh man, this guy's a legend. The craziest about it, I think you probably did a year and a half ago, that episode.
Yeah. I think it was last summer, somewhere in there. And so that was kind of a surreal moment just being on his, because he's been a hero of mine for a long time. Yeah. So just getting traction on that first deal is, like, a lot of people say the first one is the hardest one, and so far it has been. And then after that, start building the momentum with connections and finding people with different skill sets that can complement yours, and then it just starts rolling.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then that was only, like I said, a year and a half ago, and you were at about 600 pads then.
Yeah.
You've managed to pretty much double your portfolio since that podcast that we watched. So can you kind of run us through how you said hockey stick growth?
Yeah. And we're feeling that hockey stick growth. Like, there's a lot of room for improvement for sure, in systems, which we're focusing on now that the market's gotten a little frothy. And so just focusing on doing, just being more efficient with what we're doing. So a lot of our deals have actually been portfolios. So that's how we've been able to multiply quickly. So after my wife and I bought the first one, I knew of an off-market one 1.5 miles down the road from that first one. And that's where, when I met Brett, my partner, through my son's lawn mowing business. That's a totally different story, but that's kind of how we met. And we bought a second park that was like 22 spaces just down the road. And then Brett had done multifamily before. So he'd been involved in syndications, and I never had been. So that's what I mean. Like, connecting with people with differing skill sets is important. And so we took down a 4-park portfolio up in Iowa. That was like our first syndication, about 200, and I can't remember now, 220 spaces. So going from like 40 to 220, that was like a huge jump. And that just, you scale with it as you can. But the last one big portfolio we did was a 6-park portfolio in Springfield, Missouri. Most of our stuff's in the Midwest, so kind of hubs around Kansas City, Des Moines, Iowa, and Springfield, Missouri. So that was a 6-park portfolio, about 470 pads, and that one was about 92% occupied, so pretty stable. Where a lot of our stuff in the past had been more like 60-70% occupied, looking to infill and add value that way. But this one's been nice not having to infill as much, for sure.
Nice. So how many offers would you say you had to make just to get to that amount of pads?
Oh gosh, I can look
more than you can even count.
Board. It's dozens and dozens and dozens, right? We evaluate. We're still evaluating deals every week, anywhere from 3 to 5 deals. It's from mobile home parks, RV parks, but also retail, self-storage. But our bread and butter is like the mobile home parks. So this year alone, we've probably written, I don't know, 50 to 70 LOIs. We've gotten 2 under contract, and we ended up backing out on those. It just didn't work. So it's different with the interest rates where they are and all that right now. But yeah, lots of offers going out. It pays to be selective. And then on the due diligence side, like there's some communities we have that you learn as you go, for sure, like just infrastructure issues that we didn't foresee or catch. And now all of a sudden you've got to replace the whole sewer line or water, whatever it might be. So we get better with each one of those as well as we're adding communities.
So I have a question about that first part.
Nice. Yeah. So when people say
there's a small, it sounds like there's like, it might be a little small lag or something. Because every time I say something, it's like, doesn't catch it. It's all right.
Yeah.
All good though. I wanted to ask about that first part. You said you got it from LoopNet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And you also said you ended up getting seller financing from it.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that?
I can walk you through that. Yeah. There's a reason it had been sitting for forever. It was on there for like 2 years. One, it's a smaller park. It's kind of a tertiary market. It's still in the Kansas City metro. But the owner had no finances, like none. He lived in the park, And he, I think the day I got there, he just pulls out this big wad of cash and is like, here, you know, so here's how I collect my rent. So he just, yeah. So no bank records, nothing really. So he did have a loan on it. So I had to work with his lender. You know, I came up with a down payment. I actually used a home equity line of credit to come up with that down payment. We were just before we sold our house to move. So we ended up paying that off, but that's kind of maybe a little bit creative in getting into it. So it was a 3-year balloon. We were at 5.5% interest. I mean, the purchase price is like $270,000. So it wasn't, you know, it's not a crazy high price or anything. And it was about 70%, 65% occupied. And now we have two of the original tenants are still there. So had to turn over a few, because what I found out was like not everyone was paying like he said they were, right? And a lot of the fixes he was doing himself, even though I had the homes inspected. A lot of duct tape and bubble gum fixes.
Oh my gosh!
You know, going in when you first start and you don't necessarily know what to look for. You know, now I do much better. Like I can look at a house, walk it, and have a pretty good idea of what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, or just like the capital needed to fix them up. Like I was naive to that. I didn't realize some of these take 10 to 15,000 just to rehab, right? And so it was a slow process of building that thing back up, but it's a nice little income producer now.
So I am curious, because you said there was an underlying loan on it, right? So knowing kind of some different creative strategies you might know now, would you have done anything different about that deal back then?
I don't think so. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. Like it was, it probably shouldn't have happened. Like, especially for somebody with no experience in mobile home park and this, you know, so I think I put down about 83,000 for that.
Yeah.
30 something percent. So it was a decent down on it.
Sure.
And I was paying straight to the bank.
Yeah.
I wish, I think I could have pressed for either longer amortization. It was like a 12-year AM or a lower interest rate. I wasn't very aggressive in those. I didn't really know that I could, you know, push those different buttons at that time. I just kind of went with the broker who was representing the seller and just like, okay, yeah, the numbers still work. It sounds good, but yeah, I could have pressed harder to get even better numbers on that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So LoopNet, I don't want to spend too much more time on it, but the reason why I'm like talking about LoopNet so much is because Dustin and Ben and myself have talked about sourcing deals and trying to find deals, and LoopNet always comes up in conversation. And we spent some time working through LoopNet trying to source deals that way, but we found that it's usually like 100+ days on LoopNet, and they're still not motivated after all. So is LoopNet a place where would you suggest new investors in the mobile home park space go on LoopNet and try to find deals, or was that kind of just some luck?
A little bit of luck. I think once it hits LoopNet or even Crexi or, you know, hits a broker, it's been through a whole bunch of set of eyes already. Yeah. So like the 6 park portfolio that we got in Springfield, we heard about it from a way bigger fish than we are. They own something like 23,000 pads in a whole bunch of states. So we developed a relationship with them, and he's like, this doesn't work for us, like, but this would be massive for you guys if you could take it down. So it did not hit the open market at that point. It was just being floated, like kind of the pocket listings that brokers have. So getting into those types of deals takes time and relationships, right? So LoopNet, Crexi, those types of sites, and a lot of regional sites, especially like Midwest, Southwest, that you can find are great places to look when you're first starting. make the connections with the brokers, call the brokers, start getting in with them. Then you start slowly getting those more preferred deals sent your way. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, but we've started a cold calling team. So we tried the VA route. It didn't work real well for us. So we have some like part-time folks in state that we pay them like $12 an hour. This is kind of a side gig for them. So we get the lists to them, scripts, train them. So we've actually been able to close on 2 deals, including our first RV park last year through those leads. So
awesome.
It can pay off.
Awesome.
And is it you skip tracing? Are you skip tracing the data, or are you just calling the number that's on like MH Village on like the directory?
Yeah, definitely going through a skip tracing. So using CoStar to get kind of a raw list, but a lot of that data is, and that's through broker friend. Like I don't pay for CoStar, but I have friends that have it. So they get like the list of several hundred mobile home parks in an MSA. Then we'll either use our VAs or our cold calling folks to, I guess, find more recent data on that using the Secretary of State websites, and then going into, searching for the LLCs, owners, that type of stuff. And then we skip trace it.
Yeah.
A lot of that CoStar data is super old. Crexi has a nice tool we've used in the past. I think it's Crexi Intelligence, where you can pull up comps for RV, mobile home, like get really specific, and then it dives down into the property information. So it's just like a one click, and you can get all that info. And it also gives you like the most recent phone number. So I looked up my own first park, and like you can find me, find my name, find my cell phone number, like super fast.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So there's some tools. I mean, that's like $200 a month. But there's some tools out there that people could utilize to try to source some of these.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot of manual work in the beginning, and then the skip tracing part, and then having your team start calling.
Yeah. And I was doing all that myself and trying to figure it out. Like,
oh man.
Parlay 2.0. I don't know if you guys have seen that or used that. It's an add-on to Google Earth that essentially adds a layer for parcel mapping. So here's a hack you can do if you Google Parlay 2.0. There's a couple of videos, but you can sign up for a 2-week trial with your email. So if you have a few disposable emails, you can get a nice long period of time. And that's a nice one because you can search places where they're not all these mobile home parks pop up on these lists. So if you spend the time, they're easy to find, they're easy to spot on the Google Maps, right? Like mobile home parks are distinct, and then you can click in and get the same type of owner info. It's pretty accurate.
I've found that before because I used to pull some lists. I would just get them pulled and then get them skip traced. And I'm like, there's not a whole lot of data out there. But then I go and I cross-check it to what I would think is a mobile home park. It's a mobile home park, but it's not zoned as one. So now it's not pulling up on because I use like something like PropStream, if you're familiar. That's just one source that I pull some data from. And I was like, there should be more mobile home parks than this. That's a really good tip.
Yeah, the zoning is a good point too, because if you're looking up, they're zoned different codes, different letters in different states or municipalities. So you can find those like kind of needles in a haystack that other people aren't calling. Some of these owners are getting multiple calls every week on their park, and so it's ones that aren't that are going to be your better bet probably to.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So you started talking just very briefly about your acquisitions. You're doing some cold calling. You got a few people, it sounds like, in state that you're calling. But talk to us a little bit more about your overall team. I think you have a business partner, right?
Yeah. So, Brett Bowman. So he still works full time in his tech position.
Nice.
And we have Matt, who he's based out of California, and he's kind of our underwriting guru. really a savant with Excel and our underwriting model. We've looked at a lot of them, and I'm biased, but we've built it like probably thousands of hours at this point, refining it.
Yeah.
Even for a portfolio of 5-6 parks, it's built out to be able to really drill down to the individual park level and infilling how many homes and which month, which year you're going to infill the homes and how that affects your NOI.
Oh yeah, and your burn rate and all that.
Yeah. So it goes way past the initial, like Ryan Naris gave me his basic one that's like, I don't know, 20 lines on an Excel sheet. And it's a great way to get started.
Yeah.
And evaluate. But yeah, so we have Trip Cooper. He's our financial analyst. So he does a lot behind the scenes with the underwriting, with like looking at, for example, we use Metron water meters at all our parks for when we submeter. So really comparing our percent bill back, and like we have 1 million gallons out, but our homes, we've only had 200,000 gallons go through our submeter. So that's a big deal of trying to tackle, like, where are those water leaks, what's happening, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. That's, low hanging fruit to really improve NOI type of stuff. We have a couple other full-time folks. Kristen and Doug Hensley, married couple, they were the managers of my very first park. Doug was the inspector on that first park, and they've grown with us. So Doug, he's focused on rehabs at different communities, and Kristen's grown into the role of asset manager. So really any major project that we're working on, just making sure budgets are being held to and that type of stuff. And then Allie, she's in charge of our home sales, home moves, home process. Just, it's a ton of work and logistics to get a mobile home from one place to another and make sure that lot is ready for it and connected to the right utilities and everything's working. It's a lot. So we have somebody that's devoted just to that aspect.
Nice. You got a good sized team, and it seems like crucial members in that team too.
Yeah. And we self-manage everything. So we have a couple of regional managers that filter down to the park managers. Not every park it's not a one-to-one. So we have a married couple that they manage like 6 of them locally, regionally. So, but that's kind of the structure that we have for disseminating info down and just making sure that we're getting our collections right, and we have action plans when collections aren't right, and those types of things. So
nice.
So what are your biggest challenges that you're facing right now within the business and the growth?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely on the home side and that infill side. So we ordered 47 brand new legacy homes last year. A little over a year ago, we made the order, and they started arriving in November, December. So not a great time of the year to be installing homes, right? And for different reasons, the lots weren't ready. So the homes have been sitting in storage. And we've been moving them now, and lots are getting ready. But it would just happen so much slower than we thought it would. And that was our first brand new home order, and it was a lot of them. So just getting that sped up, I think we're on a really good pace now, but it took months more than we thought it would to kind of get traction on it.
Was that more a function of the length of time it took for the home to get built, or you to prep the property to be ready for the home to be delivered?
So at the time, it was how long they were taking to be built. So really both issues. So not having done that type of lot prep before with new homes, it's the piers, it's making sure all the utility hookups are in the right spot, etc. And having the contractors that know what they're doing to do it correctly. So we've learned the hard way that the cheaper or cheapest option, there's usually a reason for that. You're going to pay the price experience in having to redo it. So we've had to pay for rework being done because it wasn't done properly the first time. We went with somebody that said we can do it, and they tried. Then we found out it wasn't up to par, and now we have to redo a bunch of work. So just doing due diligence with contractors and making sure you have experienced folks doing that type of work is super important.
And I think you lost thousands of dollars because of the storing and really having to move.
Yeah, the carrying fees and with legacy, you know, you're making payments on them, and so just the carrying fees of it, you know, that sucks. But also now we're on a good pace, and every home you put in there, we're adding with where the lot rents are, you know, probably $40,000 to $60,000 of value for each one. Finding lending sources and partners is important for the end user. So like we use PEP, Performance Equity Partners, and they're a great option for older homes, especially. So in fact, we're going to close on one in a couple of days. That's the 1972. So it's a pre-HUD home.
Oh, wow.
But it's in great shape. It's been remodeled. You really wouldn't know. And so we're selling that one for $45,000, and they're financing it. So others don't go back that far for sure. So Zippy is the newer one that we've just started using. So they're growing monthly into different states. They're in the South, Southeast, and Midwest mostly right now. But they really are like the like a turbo loan. I mean, they're just so easy. It's like it takes minutes for them to get pre-approved. Process is all online, really seamless. We're like PEP, you have to fill out paperwork by hand, and it's like very very, very old school. We can automate it through automatic signatures and forms and stuff, but Zippy so far has been the most user-friendly, easiest, and just pretty flexible, but 1993 and newer only, so they don't do old homes.
So you're finding these new homes, you're placing them, and then you're finding your tenant, and they're going to purchase the home with the financing that you kind of already set up through these different vendors.
Yeah, and like we're approved through 21st, through Triad, through a lot of those, the more traditional ones. We just haven't gone that route yet. I think like PEP and Zippy have just been very simple. To use, but we're not opposed to lease to own at all. Rental we try to stay away from. We don't want to be in charge of fixing toilets and windows and doors and things like that. But some people like that model, and it works. I think there's potentially more money in it if it's done right.
So are all of yours, would you say, tenant owned versus park owned? Do you like tenant owned better? I would assume you like tenant owned better.
Yeah, we like tenant owned better. So I'd say probably over 90% of ours are tenant owned. We have probably less than 10 total rentals in our whole portfolio.
Wow.
So those were inherited.
Nice.
So a lot of them we've tried to convert over to at least a lease to own, or if a renter moves out, it's going to be either a lease to own or for sale. So
okay. Nice.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. I was having bad internet connections. I think you might have already answered this, but what's been like your biggest challenge right now? And if you had to start over, what would you do?
Sure. Yeah, it was on the home side for sure. Just the logistics of that and figuring it out. I'd say, but going to the other question with if starting over, knowing what I know now, like I wouldn't have, I probably wouldn't have done that first deal. Or it would have been structured differently, and having more capital up front, or bringing in a partner with more capital, so I could have sped up the process of rehabbing the homes that I thought were in decent shape, but they ended up not being. And so it was like every penny that was being made was going back into the park for a good year and a half. So just knowing the level of capitalization you need going into it, or finding partners that have the capital to help out with that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one.
Yeah. So you were doing this full time, or you were employed while you were doing this? So you and your wife when you first started?
Yeah. So great question. So I'll back way up to 2008 is when I started in real estate as a real estate agent, just for single family stuff. I was a high school science teacher and coach. I coached, basketball, track, cross country. And then we had our second kid, my son, and just like the prospects of paying for daycare on a teacher salary, and my wife was working in as a dental assistant, where we were in the Seattle area. Just it was so expensive, so I was like, start doing real estate. So it's right 2008 when the market crashed. So it took a couple of years to really get rolling, but did well. Ended up like I'd make more as a real estate agent than as a teacher a number of those years. So I did that for 13 years. And then I didn't want to rebuild that business when we moved to Idaho. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started researching mobile home parks and finding that first one. So the last 7 years, I was an elementary school principal. So even here in Idaho, when I moved for 3 years, I was still doing that. Just went full time into this work back in June of last year. So,
nice. Do you remember what actually turned you on to mobile home parks? I know you were listening to a lot of the big guys, but was there something that kind of like, oh man, this is where it's at. This is the asset class that I'm like.
Yeah, it's a good question. I had a couple of friends that they knew people that owned parks, and so I think they just started talking about them. It's like, who never want a mobile home park? Like, what? Right? Yeah. So probably the same looks I get from people when they first see me or whatever. But it planted the seed to look into like, why were they doing it, or why were they interested in it? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, this could be pretty crazy lucrative if you do it right anyway. So
yeah. So what kind of financing are you seeing right now in the mobile home park space? I know you talked about you are bringing in these units, so if you could talk about that, and then also on the acquisition side.
Yeah, so like on the home side, the one reason we like Legacy is that they have a pretty awesome in-house financing program. I think it's like at 7.9% interest, something like that. And right now, like dealers, I get calls from dealerships and from really around the country because they are hurting for orders now. It's polar opposite of what it was a year ago.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So interest rates through Legacy Anywhere are still low. They're offering like 6 months, no payments, all kinds of stuff to try to get that traction going. We're approved through 21st for their flooring plan. So flooring just means paying for new homes to be made. But through like that, even if it's a pretty good chunk of like a few $100,000, that's not that many homes, right? Like,
yeah.
But so anyway, that's what attracted us to the Legacy homes. You do your research, do your due diligence. We did, because you're going to find mixed reviews, just like anywhere really. But it was Andrew Keel. I don't know if you know who Andrew is, but he ordered a bunch from them, so he got us comfortable with the product and quality, etc. And they've been good. So I haven't seen much better than that as far as getting a number of homes in the finance program. Most of them you have to put like 20% down. to get them in queue or whatever. And then, you know, just like everywhere else, just the interest rates going up, and the market's usually pretty slow in responding. Sellers' prices are still where they were a couple years ago in a lot of cases.
Haven't realized it.
And with the mobile home parks, if they've owned it for a long time, like they don't need to unless there's like a health thing or like they're making a ton of money on them. But a lot of, you know, they get tired of running these things. And, but yeah, the interest rates obviously have slowed down our momentum in acquisitions. Mm-hmm. So we're just really looking more inward, on improving what we've got. So.
Nice. What kind of interest rates are you seeing right now on the acquisition side?
So it's deal dependent, but we did see, like high fives was probably the lowest that one of our mortgage brokers brought us like a deal and said, hey, I can get like, I forget what it was. It was like 5.7, 5.8 on this. But a lot of the stuff's, you know, I think we're underwriting right now at like 6.5 to 7% on the acquisition side. And then you know, like 2 years ago, our exit, most of our stuff, we have a 10-year hold for our syndications. So we were putting our exits like at, you know, 5.5 or 6%, thinking that be conservative. And now that's, you know, it's more like the 7.5, just to make sure that we've got enough buffer in there and things don't come back. But what I attended the best ever conference, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago in Salt Lake City. And a lot of the speakers there and experts there, they kept saying, you got to wait until 2025, wait till 2025. So that's, anyway, for what it's worth, that's what a lot of them were saying before start seeing interest rates kind of come back down. So
nice. Are you underwriting these deals at that rate? But you mentioned kind of when you exit. So how long are you planning on holding these parks?
So so it's a 10-year hold for all of our syndicated stuff. We've recently started an open-ended fund about 8 months ago. So the last 4 purchases we've done is through that, and they've been smaller deals. And fund structure it's more like a mutual fund type of structure. So it's some investors like it, some don't. But our syndication, which is the majority of what we have, it's a 3 to 5 year refi is what we've built. Yep. So our investors, we underwrite to pay back 100% of that initial investment at the refi event. And then, you know, typically it's a 70-30 split for, you know, 70 to LPs, 30% to the GPs, general partners, until that refi. And then it's typically like a 50-50. So we write it out. And then at the 10-year mark, we either sell or refi again. And then after that, it's, you know, then the investor's out of the deal. But it's a nice long haul for them.
Yeah. And what do you mean, if you explain a little bit more about the open-ended fund? How is that structured?
Yeah. So it's efficient for us in the fact that we can raise for what we need when we need it and open it up to our investors. Like we're planning on bringing in 5 more mobile homes to this community that we bought with the fund. So we need to raise like $80,000 or whatever it might be. And so there's usually some kind of time period, 6 months before we start paying the 8% pref on that, just so we can get the NOI rolling. So it provides a lot of flexibility for us. So the second RV park deal that we just closed on a couple months ago in Tennessee, and we're really more of the money partner. So it's a developer that came to us. It's like, hey, I've got this land. I already have some RV sites. I've built RV parks before, but I need $250,000 to finish building it out. So we went to our investors and, you know, marketed it and webinar and all that. And then they can make the choice, but it just provides flexibility on our side. And then it's just kind of lifelong returns, really, because if we do refi, then we use that money to purchase other properties.
Yeah.
So versus paying out the initial investment.
Yep. Smart.
Investors can get their money out after, we prefer like they keep it in for at least 2 years, but they can get it out if they want. But it just continues to grow. So that share value, especially if people get in early, is, just continues to grow and be diversified.
Nice. Yeah.
And one follow-up question with your underwriting. I know Frank Rolfe talks about the 3-point rule, and that's kind of like the holy grail. Is that that you follow in order to like make syndications possible? Is there some parameters that make it possible to be able to raise money and still make it make sense for the investor and for yourself?
Yeah. So the short answer, yes, we love to look for at least that 3% margin in there, but most of the time we're creating that 3% or more because it's a value add deal, right?
Got it.
So you're pulling the main triggers of decreasing expenses, increasing revenue by billing back utilities. Like water submetering it's easy, and it's such a high return back, and it helps you identify when you have leaks and other inefficiencies within your park. And then of course the rent raises, because a lot of these folks are, we've yet to really buy any communities that are at market rent. So they've all been below market rent, and we're working we like to stay right behind the market rent, but still be not super aggressive. Like you're not going to see our company name as one of those that go in and double or triple the lot rent. That you will, if you Google it, you'll find some big names out there that have done that, and it leads to like states talking about rent control and stuff like that. So we don't believe in that. We believe in adding value through infilling vacant lots, steady rent increases, and then getting aggressive on low hanging fruit, like billing back utilities, trash, that type of stuff.
Got it. So I had a follow-up question to that underwriting question that Ben just asked. Was we see oftentimes a lot of sellers are wanting a price for their park based on park-owned homes, the rental value for park-owned homes, and then. So I guess my question is, when you're underwriting your deals and you're analyzing them, you buy tenant-owned home. You like the parks that are tenant-owned homes. So are you converting after the fact and underwriting based on tenant-owned home parks?
Just based on lot rent is what we do our underwriting. The cash flow for lease to own homes and stuff, that's great. It's nice while you have it, but eventually it's going to go away.
Goes away. Yep.
So we treat that as that's the icing on the cake for a while, but we're not underwriting that. And that was one of my mistakes with that first park, is I did underwrite it with that. Still worked because I got it at such a good price. But after you learn a bit more, you realize it's all about the lot rent, because a lot of the banks, that's how they're valuating them, and they're not really looking at that extra rental income.
Right. So that's got to be a tough situation, because you have a seller that thinks that their park is making X amount, let's say 100,000 with park owned homes. Right. But with tenant owned homes, it's going to make a portion of that.
Yeah.
Is it going in there and educating the seller, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, but as a tenant owned homes, this purchase price does not make sense"? Is that what you're experiencing?
What we're experiencing and what we attempt to explain to them, we haven't had much luck in convincing them otherwise, right? So it's really it's a tough sell for them to take half the price of what they're expecting, right? Or even like 25% less. So yes, we do that. We underwrite sometimes, like if it's I'll use round it. So if purchase price is 10 million and our underwriting comes in and it's like, it works for us at like 4.5 or 5 million. Like, do we even write an LOI?
Yeah.
And usually I'm the one that's like, yeah, because we need to help the next guy with setting the market rate right. So you know, we never get those, but I feel obligated sometimes just to send it and just say, works for us at this price, maybe consider lowering it in the future or whatever.
Yeah, the LOIs has been sending out that are kind of like that, just giving them the price, but then the explanation of why we're at this, so they don't, you know, so they kind of understand where their buyers are going to come in at, instead of, you know, a seller that hasn't been on the market maybe even in the last 15, 20 years if they've owned it for that long. Yeah.
And have you guys had the experience of that deal comes back to you a couple of times?
Not yet.
We've had a couple of those. We've offered on one park probably 5 times in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
They keep coming back. They're like, oh, we did this and this, and like, cool, but the interest rates have done this, and our first offer is still where it kind of works for us. So
yeah.
Our last week guest said that he's like, you got to get used to making offers that you're a little bit embarrassed to submit.
Yeah. I don't get embarrassed about them anymore. At first we're like, we're going to offend somebody, or the broker's going to get mad. And some of them do, they get kind of snippy in their responses back to you. Or they're like, well, we just got an offer for just at asking price. I'm like, sweet, dude.
Take it.
Good luck to them, I guess. But
yeah. Yeah. Nice. I know you mentioned in the beginning you, or maybe this is offline actually, you were investing in some other stuff. What kind of other assets are you investing in?
Yeah, so we have one small retail center, just like a mini strip mall, and it's in Newton, Iowa. We have but it's a market we know because we have a mobile home park there as well. So we have our regional manager helps manage that. So we've learned quite a bit about retail on that. We were part of Commercial Academy. I don't know if you've Scott Shields, if that name
heard of it. Yeah,
rings a bell. So we were involved in his Commercial Academy for like 2-3 years, and just met a lot of guys and gals that were doing retail, self-storage, industrial. So we've written LOIs for self-storage. We've been under contract on a couple. It didn't work out. So we're interested in that route as well. Industrial is appealing to us. So yeah, we're still looking at the fringes for different asset types. So they're interesting, like triple net retail.
Yeah.
Way easier than mobile home parks.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a nice change of pace in that regard.
Seems a lot of people that are in the mobile home park space also are going into the triple net lease and the industrial side of things, and storage units also.
Yeah.
Literally last week, that was our interview last week we had. He's in the industrial warehouses and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Ryan, before we get on to our next questions, and we're kind of wrapping it up here, we got, we're almost at an hour here. What is the best way for people to reach out to you if they have deals to send you, or any questions, and they can work with you?
So just our website is suncrestcap.com. So Suncrest Capital. And then email is ryan@suncrestcap.com. And we're on our website. You can click contact us. Always happy to connect on a Zoom phone call. We have some sweat equity investor partners, especially in our fund, that they've obviously put money into it, but they have some pretty significant responsibilities on some of these properties, like the RV parks, one of the mobile home parks. So they're in charge of the infill. They're in charge of the projects, the rehabs, whatever it might be. We're mentoring them, and they now own mobile home parks themselves too. But we've people that have no money and just want to learn and bring some value in getting a cold calling list and making calls, right?
That's
like,
awesome.
How can you add value to somebody else? And that, like for us, that's how you could add value if you wanted to get in on a deal. And then you get, like, we do a percentage of ownership based on if you find a deal, bring it in. If you put some money in, obviously that's great, but you don't necessarily have to. Like, just find an aspect to fill somebody's, time, effort, whatever it might be that they need help in. So,
right,
nice,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's an awesome value add that you guys are doing with that for sure.
Yeah, it's brought us deals, so it's helpful, and it's, as you guys know, this is about relationships. So, developing those and they just start paying dividends for you in a lot of different ways. So
nice. And what kind of deals would you want people to bring to you? You said you're looking in the Missouri, Kansas area. Yeah. Still, is there a certain deal size you're looking for? Like, it's got to be 20 pads and up. What's that kind of look like to you?
Yeah, now it's definitely bigger. If it's a brand new market, we're looking at 75 to 100 pads plus.
Okay.
We've added on to these portfolio, like in Springfield. I think we're at about 10 communities in and around Springfield, Missouri now. So we've added one that was, I think, 28 pads, and we wouldn't look at that anywhere else. But since it's right in our backyard and managed by the same people, so it just kind of depends. But for new markets, and we've looked in Tennessee, we've looked in Ohio, looked in Idaho, Washington, but they're in California. But you guys know what the prices are like down there. So yeah, it's really bigger deals outside of our core markets. Private utilities we do own. We're not as excited as we once were about them.
Yeah.
So we have lagoons, we have wastewater treatment plants, we have wells, we have septic systems in some of these different parks. And so not necessarily a deal killer. Like you mentioned, like Frank and Dave, like they'll tell you all day long, stay away from private utilities.
Yeah.
which probably, there's reason, but there's also value in private utilities that can be connected to city. And if you underwrite it that way, it starts getting pretty sweet fast. So
yeah, nice. Very cool. Well, we are approaching about an hour, guys. Is there any other questions that you can think of? I think everything that we looked at in the live comments are kind of not really questions, more statements. But anything else before we wrap this up?
No,
perfect. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you coming in here and sharing your knowledge and experience. And it's very appreciative that you've come in here and helped us out and helped out the audience. And for everybody that is watching live, this will be posted in the Facebook group. We will also have this on YouTube, and eventually we'll have a podcast with this episode on there too. So again, for those that are on the podcast, it's Ryan at suncrestcap.com to get a hold of him, and you can go to the website. He already talked about how you guys can bring some value to them and then partner up on some of these deals, which is amazing. So let's show them some love and bring them some deals and let them get another deal from you guys.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
So, awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, again, I appreciate you guys listening. Ryan, I appreciate you coming in here and sharing your knowledge. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys.